One of the distinguishing characteristics of the seventh stage of spiral dynamics, integral, is allowing paradox, embracing paradox. And so even the Ken Wilber model, even the Don Beck spiral dynamics model of cultural evolution, consciousness evolution, can be looked at paradoxically as a good thing and a bad thing. And there's so much talk about how it's great that we're evolving. So I want to talk about the other side of it. If you look at each of these stages, it was an attempt for people to be right, to create a value system. They needed to be right. They needed to be either accepted by others or, by rejecting others, accepted by themselves. So they were choosing either freedom or communion. So through meditation, if the kids can be unschooled, if that's possible, that's where they choose their own curriculum, we can break this conditioning. And then we can do things without having an agenda, without judging what is happening, what should happen, what did happen. We can act without needing a desire to change things, just from a curiosity or a compassion, but not a compassion that makes things wrong, not a compassion that judges me as superior to you or you as superior to me, which you see is so much a part of each stage of the spiral, each stage of consciousness, each value system that people adopt in history. So we just notice that experiences are happening and we let them be the way they are. And when we do things for their own sake, then it doesn't need to be different than it is. We're just in the flow of life. So now I want to talk about the positive aspects of evolution, but just as the paradox of the spiral dynamic model or the consciousness child development, whatever developmental models can be seen as helpful, they're also a hindrance. So let's just throw that out. And let's consider that every person that came before you, your father or mother, your grandfather or grandmother, your great-grandfather or grandmother, go all the way back in time, even before Homo sapiens to primates, go back and back and back, and you'll look at all of these organisms that lived, reproduced, and died to lead up to you. All were pretty much operating, pretty safe to say, under this idea of judging what was happening, seeking pleasure, and avoiding pain. And that's what kept them alive, probably, in the wild. So we're not judging them, but let us stand on their shoulders the way we transcend and include all the stages in the spiral dynamic model. But how can we exist without this seeking pleasure or avoiding pain? Well, first thing is, if you see yourself seeking pleasure and avoiding pain, you're not denying what's happening or even avoiding what's happening. You're just noticing what's happening. You show up for whatever happens. You really experience it. You be curious about it. You get curious about the experience of avoiding pain and the experience of seeking out pleasure. And this brings you into the present moment. And when you're in the present moment, then you'll encounter all the ways you're trying to get away from the moment. Then if you show up for this resistance, you'll see that it's just resistance and you no longer suffer over it. You just see the brain, the body, the mind is doing all these things in reaction to what's happening, but there's an aspect of you that's just watching what's happening. And you don't have to wait to become free of resistance. Resistance can still arise, but by embracing it, when it arises, you're free. What is it like to be here in this present moment without any agenda, without any conclusions, any judgments, any beliefs, any fantasies, any stories that intercede between you and the truth of this moment? Being here in the moment, it merely means a willingness. You have to summon a willingness, or a willingness is summoned in you, since you don't have free will, to let go of all your ideas about what is happening and just be in a state of mystery. And the more willing and the more willing that you are to look at what is here in the present moment, the less you know. I mean, if you look deep into who is having these thoughts, who is listening to me speak, there's nobody there. You can take these as words, but do you have the courage to actually go into the middle of it and say, okay, wow, there's just words, and I don't know where they're coming from or where they're going to. Now, the less willing you are to see the truth of this moment, the more you're going to rely on what you know. And that's why I keep talking about unschooling or meditation, to get comfort in a situation where there is no reliance on an exterior paradigm, what came before, a model of way of doing things, assumptions. Let's throw all that out. To really be present, to be in the tiny present moment, none of that stuff exists. Maybe it got you here, maybe it didn't. Maybe it's real, maybe it's not. Maybe you imagined it, maybe you've filtered it. You have no idea. So be willing to enter into that space of not knowing. And then you're in the present moment. Be willing to go into the present moment, and you're in the space of not knowing.